Welcome to the Cook's Simmering, and today we're going to cook up a chili. Now I know what you're thinking, chili, that's a staple here in the UK, chili con carne, twice a week. But I think what we cook here in the UK is a very British chili. I don't think it resembles very much to the authentic kind of recipes from the countries that we imagine that it comes from. So this is to try and replicate as best as we can and to an authentic kind of recipe, with a few changes of my own, a few substitutions of my own to try and get it as good as we can get it. But here's one ingredient that we can get here in the UK now, the ancho chili. It's a dried poblano, and it's going to give us a richness and a complexity to our dish, but more importantly, authentic, because this is a chili that is definitely used in chilies in Mexico and in the United States. So we can now start adding these kinds of flavors to our chili that we wouldn't have had previously. The only other addition is something called sazon. Now we can't get this, at least I don't know where we can get this in the UK, it's not easily found, but you can make it up for yourselves. Now there is an ingredient to this that we cannot get, and some may say it's a very important ingredient, but from what I understand it's sweet, it's a little bit peppery, but more importantly it's color. So I'm going to show you two ingredients that I add to replicate that sweet, peppery and color to make our own sazon. And this again is what's going to bring up that chili to a different level, from the tomato-y, fiery thing that we make here to something that's got more dimension, more depth, more flavor. Definitely something that you're going to want to add. In the UK, we make our chili con carne with ground beef, and there's nothing wrong with that. Even in the US and in Mexico, they make ground beef chilies. But I thought, let's try it and make something that's a little bit more authentic. Something, even though they do it in the US and in Mexico, more often than not, a chili is made with cubed meat. Now you can buy in our supermarkets ready to go cubed meat, but whenever I've used those, I've never liked the taste. I don't think it's good meat. So what I've done is I've bought a topside, which is a slice, which is a joint we usually use to roast beef here. And I found it to be excellent in stews and chilies. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is the sazon, because I've only got a little bit left, and I want to show you guys how to make it yourselves. It's very easy, simple ingredients, and it's things that we have at home. So, first thing we're going to need is a bowl and a tablespoon and a pestle and mortar, but I'll show you what that's for in a minute. So the first thing is this: we're going to need cumin, something we usually have at home, just a tablespoon of cumin, a level tablespoon. Put that in a bowl. We're also going to need coriander. This is ground coriander, and we want a tablespoon of that. Drop that straight into the bowl. We need a tablespoon of garlic powder. Now that's not so easy to find in the UK. There's lots of garlic granules, and that's what I've bought. Garlic granules which I've ground to a powder. So, and I recommend getting that because more and more recipes that we're using here in the UK now have garlic powder within it. So get some garlic granules and use a pestle and mortar, grind it down to a powder. We want a tablespoon of that. We also need onion powder. Again, something else that wasn't that easy to find in the UK back in the day. You can find it as a powder, you can also find it as granules. If you find it as granules, again, pestle and mortar and ground it to a powder. We need a tablespoon of that also. Okay, the next ingredient we need is oregano, or oregano as they say in the United States. Now oregano is quite coarse, so you're going to need a pestle and mortar for it, and you need 2 tablespoons of oregano, and what we're going to do is we're going to grind it to a powder, and now it's a nice fine powder. Let's drop that straight into our bowl as well. Okay, now what we're missing is salt and pepper, which I don't add. Salt and pepper is in the commercially available sazon that you could get in the United States. I don't add salt and pepper for the reason that I'm going to be adding salt and pepper to my food anyway, and I don't want to over season. So always keep that in mind. If you find a recipe online that doesn't have any other seasoning but sazon, and you've made this at home and you have it in a little jar, remember this is without salt and pepper. We now need to substitute the annatto. I've done this quite successfully. I find it tastes pretty good. Is it the same? Of course it isn't, but it's a very good replication in my opinion. Smoked paprika. I add about half a tablespoon or a little over, say 3/4 tablespoon of paprika, of smoked paprika. This adds the more sweet and peppery notes. Also some color. The only other addition is just 1/4 to half a tablespoon of turmeric. There we go. And that is our sazon. All we've got to do now is just mix those together. Okay, the next thing we want to do is peel our carrots, just a light peel. Now, you're probably thinking, probably everyone's thinking, what's with the carrots? Okay, now the reason I use carrots is a number of things. Firstly, it adds a sweetness to the dish, because some people will actually add sugar, and I don't want to do that. And the carrots have a natural sugar. But the other thing about the carrot is, it is one of these vegetables that absolutely disintegrates into the sauce or whatever it is we're making. But it doesn't disappear. It's not a liquid. It's made of something. It's a material of some kind. It's fibrous material. So I find that it's going to be a natural thickener. We don't have to add flour, wheat flour, to thicken this up. Okay, once we've peeled our carrots, we want to grate them as small as possible. That way they have a better chance of disintegrating into our sauce and adding a thickness, a delicious thickness to our dish. And like I said, it won't taste of carrot. Don't think you're going to have some sort of carroty flavor in this. It won't exist. So let's just grate away. There we go. Once you've grated the carrot, put it to one side. We'll prepare the rest of the vegetables ready to cook. Okay, the next vegetables we want to prepare are the peppers. Dice them up as small as you can make them. And I bring them round and I cube these up into tiny pieces. And there we have it, our diced peppers. We want to add to that 1 red chili, 1 green chili. And we want to add them with the other peppers and the carrots. The next thing we want to prepare is this dried ancho chili. Now how do we deal with this bad boy? First thing we want to do is cut it open. So I go straight down the top. And I'm careful to discard what I don't want. So we don't want this stem, but this is all good chili, so why lose it? Let's clear that away. And we want to break this open now so we can get to the inside. Now you can use a pair of scissors, but I found that just using your fingers does a good job. And this way we can knock out all the seeds. Again, you don't have to take the seeds out, but that's my personal preference. What we want to do is cut this up into pieces. Doesn't have to be particularly small. Okay, so we've got a pan on the hob. What we want to do is have a medium to high heat. And we want to drop in our dried ancho chili or any other dried chilies that we have straight into the pan. Just for those to take on a little bit of warmth and to bloom and release their flavors. What we also want to add to that is about a teaspoon of our chipotle flakes. Once they begin to glisten and you can smell the chili smell, we don't want to burn these, so we want to add to this now a pint of beef broth or beef stock. And what we're trying to do here is to soften the skin of the chili and the chipotles in here. Okay, once you can feel with your spoon that the skins are softened, what we want to do now is take everything out of here and put it into your most powerful blender or a NutriBullet, whatever that you have that can blend. Okay, now it's time to prepare our meat. Now, like I said, if you've already bought cubed meat, you can skip this step. I just think buying a piece of beef like this is a lot better. So, what are we going to do? Well, let's have a look at our cut. And you should always look at the cut that you've bought. See, down here I can see we have a natural seam here in this joint. And what that tells me is there's going to be some silver skin. Now, silver skin doesn't cook. And when you bite on it, you can't chew it. So I want to remove it. So what I'm going to do now is with the knife, is I'm going to work my way and cut off this muscle from this muscle. And that's what these are. They're two separate muscles that are attached. What you do not want to remove is any fat. And you can feel the fat. See here, there's a bit of fat on there. There's a bit of fat there. But what we don't want to remove is the fat that's quite thin and quite close to the meat. Those you want to keep. Now you see this, because this is quite a lean cut, I don't really want to remove any fat off of it, but there's a concentration of fat here, and this isn't going to break down. It might soften, but the last thing I want is to get a lump of this while I'm eating. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut this off. You don't want them too big, but we don't want them too small either. So just like that, that's a perfect chunk right there. Now I know some people will be thinking, oh my God, that's a top side. And that's just way too thick for a top side, because those fibers won't be edible. But we're not cooking it as a steak, we're not cooking it as a roast. This is going to be sitting in a lot of liquid over a long period of time, and that's just going to soften it up so deliciously. Okay, once we've chopped them all up, let's just get them in a bowl, give them a nice coating of salt, some black pepper, and just give it a little mix. And we just want to then let it sit. Just let it for about 15 minutes. Just let the salt penetrate into this. Okay, so let's cook up our chili. Using the same pan that we softened the ancho chili in. We want to get it up to about a medium heat and drop in our bacon. You can drop the bacon in while the pan is still cool, because we're not trying to quickly fry this meat. We want it to render this fat. We want bacon grease. Okay, I've moved the bacon over to one side. It will continue to render. Just give it a little toss every now and again, just to bring the ones at the bottom to the top. And what we want to do now is sear our beef. Don't put too many into the pan, because otherwise we'll start boiling it and we'll get this grey looking meat, which is not what we want. We want a beautiful brown mahogany style colour to this. Now if you're not using a non-stick pan, like I'm not using a non-stick pan, the meat will stick, and that's actually a good thing, because while it's stuck, we know that it isn't ready. But when it releases, that's when we'll know that they're ready to be turned. I'll also say at this point that whenever you see a video where the browning of meat is happening, and you see them put way too many, just look at how it ends up. It's like a grey colour. All they've done is boiled that meat. They've stewed it in its own juices and never got the Maillard reaction. And that's what we want. That's the whole point of doing this. Otherwise, there's no point doing it. That one's let go. That one's let go. Look at that colour. Okay, so when your beef's browned nicely, what we can do is take it out. Lower the heat, because we don't want to burn anything. And just leave the beef to one side for the minute. Now is the time for all the vegetables. Get the bacon back into the party. and drop all these vegetables straight into this pan. And turn the heat back up. So just keep moving it around. We want to get a coating of grease all over the vegetables, and then we're just going to let it sit for a few minutes just to soften up before we add any more ingredients. Nice, so these vegetables have started to soften up lovely. Let's throw in our beef. Drop those straight in. Give that a good mix. Okay, while that's bubbling away nicely, we want to add 1 full teaspoon of our sazon, and we also want to add 1 full teaspoon of chili powder, and just stir that in. And we just want to let the whole thing simmer and break down and liquefy for about another 10 minutes or so. Let's put the lid back on. Okay, our last addition is our beef broth with the blended ancho chili. Just pour the whole thing in. As you can see, it's lowered the temperature, so turn the heat back up. And all we're going to do now, once we've mixed it up, is leave it for an hour on a simmer. Okay, after letting it simmer for about an hour or so, just keep back checking on it, make sure that it hasn't stuck underneath, which it shouldn't do. Just give it a stir. Getting quite soft now, so what we can do is add our chunky peppers and onions and our beans. Okay, once you've got the beans in, just give it a little stir just to mix it all up. Do a taste test for salt, but do a taste test also for your other spices. Is it spicy enough? Is it hot enough? Is enough of the sazon coming through? If not, adjust accordingly. Add another teaspoon. Okay, once we've mixed it up, put the lid back on. It's probably going to need about another hour. Okay, after another hour, the meat should be nice and tender. The vegetables should be nice and soft. Okay, we should do a little taste test. Get a little bit of beef. Try and get some of the beans. Pepper. Perfect. The beans are in just where we want them. The meat is starting to fall apart, which again is where we want it, because we want the meat to start to break a little bit into this. It's absolutely delicious. All we need to do now is cook it for a little while longer, maybe about 5 or 10 minutes uncovered now, stirring quite regular so as to thicken up the sauce. Okay, so it's been another 10 minutes just on the lowest heat setting, constantly stirring, and as you can see, this has come up absolutely delicious, thick and full of flavor. Now that is ready to serve. Now it's time for tasting. God, I've been looking forward to this, because it's been cooking for a few hours now. Sour cream. Oh, so good. A little bit spicy, but not too spicy. The beef is perfect, melt in the mouth. It's absolutely delicious. I hope you guys try it, and I hope you enjoy it. Anyway, as always, thank you for watching.